Hello, women, wise women. Thank you so much for joining me. As you're looking at this picture, I would like you to do some deep breathing. You know, I always forget the names, but when you breathe in for 4 and you hold it for a moment and let it out for 6, just do some deep relaxation. And I would love to read a prayer for peace. This is by Barbara Walker. Aphrodite, Columba, great goddess, holy dove of peace, hear your daughters as they call to you again after the turning of centuries, for they are humanity's life-giving mothers. They know the toil of birthing and nurturing. They know war to be a waste of their precious toil and a desecration of your earth. Kindly mother, give your daughters power to oppose the forces of war, to prevent aggressive destruction, to establish your laws of peace and kinship. Help women raise their children with teachings of peace. Help men resist the myths of glory in conflict. Help us all to respect life more than conquest. Let the return of the divine mother image usher in a new era as the women of all nations reach out to one another with understanding under your symbol. Let those who do not comprehend motherhood hear and obey those who do. Aphrodite, Columba, sacred dove, let the spiritual needs of those who yearn for you be served at last. May our prayer rise to you as the white dove rises on her wings. Blessed be. And this by St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is sadness, joy. Where there is darkness, light. O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, not so much to be understood as to understand, not so much to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we are born again to eternal life. Blessed be. So everybody come on, turn on your speakers. I mean, turn on your everything. Turn on everything. Welcome, welcome. So we're going to begin by introducing ourselves. And since I don't know how everybody's layout is, I will name everybody and then you come in. And what I'd like to know is why you signed up for this class. Okay, Kelly doesn't have a camera this time, but she's going to get one. I don't know. I know Altari is kind of fuzzy, and for some reason, my regular camera made me kind of fuzzy too. So I have this other one. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one by one, and then tell us why you joined the group. Janice, why don't I see you have your speaker off, so go for it.
Okay. Well, I've been taking the dream classes with you, and
Could you tell everybody your name?
Because I'm Janice, and
okay, stop there. This is what we do when we're in person. We welcome you by all of us saying Janice, Janice, Janice. We repeat it 3 times. So Janice, say hi, I'm Janice, and then we'll repeat it.
Hi, I'm Janice.
Janice,
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 Janice. Okay, tell us.
I've taken Kathy's dream classes. Actually, I've done a couple of different workshops regarding that, and have loved that. Have always been interested in how do you want to say it? Just the history of women in the world, shall we say, and their place in the world. And when you offered this class and the return of the goddess and their power, I guess, too. I think they are very creative and powerful and compassionate, and can offer a lot to our world. And I just want to learn more about all of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Linda. Linda Gill, go ahead.
Hi,
Introduce yourself.
I'm Linda.
Linda?
Linda.
And despite my number where my name should be, I haven't been able to change it. So that is not my name. I am here because it's time to be here. And I've been pulled to goddess energy for a long time. And I just feel like it's time to really dive in because the world needs us. It's time for us to do this. And here I am.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Kelly, unmute.
Hello, my name is Kelly.
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 Thank you, ladies. I'm here because I devoured Kathy's book and begged her to do a class. So I love her book. I love the feminine standpoint. I love the aspects of consciousness that she brings through to help us integrate ourselves on the multiple levels of mental, spiritual, physical and emotional. And I really just resonate and respect Kathy's perspective and the way she puts things together for us and brings in language that just whoosh, it lets it go right in. Like I don't have to filter, I don't have to question, I don't have to, wonder. It's straight to my instincts and intuition that it feels like truth. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Altari.
Altari?
Altari, is that how you say it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us again.
So, Altari, and I am here.
Wait, we have to say your name. Altari.
Altari.
Altari. Okay.
It rhymes with Valerie, if that helps.
Okay.
I'm here because next Sunday I turn 70. And so I really honor that passing and the passing that I'm in right now, which is going into the age of the crone means that I have to leave a number of things that I really love to do and replace them with other things that are more deep and feminine and not as external. So I've taken Kathy's classes and have gotten counsel from her for years now, and just felt like this was perfect timing, because when I have taken a class with Kathy, I find that my dreams and my meditations and just my whole world really gets a more spiritual perspective. So I'm pretty much a loner. I live in the country, and sometimes I forget that groups really do facilitate deeper learning.
Thank
Namaste.
Okay, Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol.
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 Thank you. I just turned 70 a few months ago, left my job, and I would say I've been a seeker my whole life. And during COVID shutdown, I had a very amazing teacher who collected us all on Zoom and kept my spirits going through yoga and meditation. And I believe I heard Kathy's name first from her when she referenced one of your books. And I recently had a chart done by Kathy and was just really intrigued with what this course is all about. And I know that this is an important time in our lives. And I know that, the last 2 years have just kind of cracked us all open. And I think that there's just so much that we have to be a part of right now. So I'm just anxious to see what your class is about.
Thank you. Okay, Monica?
Hi, my name is Monica.
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 Monica, Monica.
Monica.
Thank you. So I have been doing some dream work with Kathy for a few months now, and I am so grateful that I found Kathy in my path. I started to work a lot with my divine feminine energy. And I feel honored to be here with you all, you know, so much wisdom. Yes, looking forward to empower each other and to bring, you know, this divine feminine energy into the world. And yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Okay, Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam.
Pam.
Pam,
Pam.
Pam,
Pam.
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 Thank you. So I've had the blessing of being a friend of Kat's for a long time and read the book when it first came out, and certainly in the world now, but also especially personally for me, it's the time for this. And I wanted to get reacquainted with it so that I can really live it and see it also reflected in the life around me, not only just in my life and what I do. And also I love working with groups and the dynamics and how much I learn, not just from Kathy, of course, we all learn so much from her, but from what happens in the group and what everybody else brings. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Susan, you're up.
I'm Susan.
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 Thank you. So all of the above, everything everybody said, that's why I'm here. And, seriously, thank you for sharing why I'm here. And I'm closer to 80 than 70, so that is another milestone for me. It's not going to happen until next summer, but it's a big change. So one of you said something about, I think it was Altari, about how having to adjust some of your lifestyle as you are aging to newer things and so forth. So I would say the major thing that I'm here for this time is my next step. I made a decision after a pretty intense accident I had a year ago that I wasn't leaving the planet. I was given the opportunity in that accident to leave. And in a split second, as I'm like catapulting down a flight of stairs head first, I knew that I wasn't leaving the planet. And so I feel like these weeks together, the unfolding of my next life, the next 20 years, I plan to be here till I'm at least 98. So, you know, I'm very curious about what that looks like. I have inklings. You know I'm a steward of the earth. I know my work has to do with regenerative agriculture and regenerative soil and farming, and the metaphysical aspects of all of that as well. And I know there's more for me, and it's not something I've seen yet. So that's my purpose, or my intention is to allow that to tell me what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Kathy, just in case you don't know.
Kathy.
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 Thank you. So I am here because my purpose is to connect you, because we're all connected. That's why I showed you that picture. And we're going to look at that picture in different ways. I hope you wrote a few things down. But the other thing is that I'm here to teach you feminine consciousness, which is the consciousness of the imagination. Okay? Because that's how we connect to Mother Earth's biosphere. Okay? as Susan said, steward of the earth. That's what, I mean, our main purpose here is to be the stewards of the earth. And I think in ancient times, people were connected. They were, we know it. The shamans are, the Native Americans, they know how to connect to nature. Okay. And it's through our feminine imagination that we do that. So the masculine, okay, so I'll get into that in a minute. So my purpose and my hope for all of you is that by the time we're done, at least you feel at least a little, if not totally, connected to your creative imagination, your feminine consciousness, which is how our souls talk to us. Okay, so that when you have questions, you can go right there and you can ask for your wisdom. Because I firmly believe that women's greatest gift to the world is wisdom. Okay. And I don't think men have it, not in the way we have it. And I think it's in our bodies. So if you look at what patriarchy has done, cut us off from our bodies. They made us ashamed of our bodies. They made us go against our bodies, okay, all to please their vision of who we should be, right? And so we lost touch with what our bodies were saying. And I'm not just saying don't eat that food or don't eat this food. I'm talking about going out and talking to the trees, or going out and talking to the spirits of the land and saying, what do you need from me? Okay. I was watching that astrology program, The Changing of the Gods. And on the last episode, it was about technology. But one of the scientists said, you know, we always say that everything else in nature isn't as good as us. He was saying plants don't have eyes, but plants are made up totally of the things that make us see. Whatever those things in our eyes are, they have them all over their bodies. So they're walking, you know, they're sitting there looking at everything, right?
Yes.
Okay, we are so disconnected from the magic of our world. And that's the other thing I think women have is magic. Okay, we can create magic. Okay, that's my youngest son. I haven't talked to him for a month or so because he's been out west working. And of course, today he called me for 45 minutes to talk because he missed his mom. And we're talking about quantum physics and we're talking about the quantum fields. And it was like, yes. That's feminine consciousness. We are all connected, right? And so I began with those prayers because of what's going on in Ukraine.
Serene, can you please mute, darling, while you're moving around? Thank you.
You know, so we're all, you know, horrified, but this has been going on for decades and decades, ever since we developed bombs, okay? And even though we can go and point to the bad Russian guy, which is our usual, you know, go to China or Russia, we need to change things here in America too. Okay. And we're here in America. We are the mothers of America, whether we want to or not, the grandmothers. I'm already 70. Okay. I was 70 a couple of years ago. I'm going to be 73 in another month or so, you know, so you know, we're the grandmothers of the future. And if we don't change the consciousness of our culture, nobody will, right? So when I talk about the creative imagination, it's not that patriarchy hasn't been connected to it, it uses it. As I've said many times, when I was raising 4 kids, my friends would go, you're great with images. You're a dream therapist. Go into advertising. And I said, I would never use what I know to sell crap to people that they don't need things, right? And so part of it is patriarchy uses the feminine, just like it uses the earth. And what we want to do is be free of that, because within us, we do it too. We say, how can I use my imagination to make more money? That whole secret thing, I know it's just me, but it just pissed me off because basically they were saying, everybody make a lot of money, you know, imagine it and you'll make $1 million. I don't think that's what the imagination is for. Go ahead. You too, Susan?
It isn't just you. I mean, I studied Ho'oponopono with Dr. Hugh Lin. And when and I'm certain before all of that was over with, he was ashamed of ever having shared what he was and what he knew, and seeing how it got translated into cigars and money and fast cars. Anyway,
Well,
yeah.
the fairy tale we're going to work with today is all about how patriarchy wants to suck every good thing that we come up with out of us and use it for itself to make money. Okay. So, you know, there is this sense that that we have to get rid of patriarchy within ourselves. I call it leaving the father's house. Okay. Because I'm going to record, because I have this recorded, and I can usually tell stories pretty good by myself, but I want to get it right. Okay. So this is, to me, patriarchy. This is called The Maidens of the Well. If you have my book, you know that I put it there. In ancient times, Logres was a rich country, but it was turned into a wasteland when the kingdoms lost the voices of the wells and the maidens who lived in them. These maidens would offer food and drink to wayfarers. A traveler had only to wish for food and seek out one of the wells, and a maiden would appear from out of the well with the food he liked best and with a cup of gold in her hand. And no one was excluded from this service. But one day, King Amagons broke this custom. Although it was his duty to guard the maidens, he raped one of them and took away her golden cup for his own service. And after that, no maiden was seen issuing from that well, and the only service that wayfarers received was done invisibly. And of course, the king's vassals followed their king's actions and raped the other maidens, carrying off their golden cups. And so the service of the wells ceased. The land was laid waste. Trees lost their leaves. Meadows and plants withered, and the waters were dried up, so that no man might find the court of the rich fisherman, he that once made the land bright with his treasures. Many years later, when King Arthur instituted the Knights of the Round Table, they heard this story and they were determined to make amends. But though they made many vows to God, they could not hear a voice from the wells, nor could they find any of the maidens. But one day the knights did find a group of ladies and knights in the forest, and they captured one of the knights, and he told the following tale. All of us here are the children born of the maidens whom Amagons and his men raped. We are bound to travel together through this land until God wills that the court of joy be found again, for that will make the land bright. And so the knights decided to seek out the court of the rich fisherman, who was the shapeshifter. And although many knights sought it and found, a few even found it, none of them asked the right questions when the hallows, the cup and the plate and the sword and the spear were processed through the hall. And at that table, when the grail appeared by itself and served all who sat there, they were provided with a great variety of food. But on the day that the court of the rich fisherman was found and the correct answers received by the seeker, the waters flowed again. The fountains which had been dried up ran into the meadows. Fields were green and fruitful, and the forests were clothed in green leaf on the day that the court of joy was found. That's an old Arthurian tale from the Middle Ages. And this is what happened. This is what happened to our world in the last 500 years, ever since the Industrial Revolution. You know? And it's because the world lost the women's voices. They shut us down. They turned us to evil. They were told us that we were evil and bad. So now we're going to change that. Okay. Now, so we're going to get right to it. And since feminine consciousness, let me describe that a little. The left brain is logical, rational, you know, goes beginning, middle, and end, is good for talking, you know, and focusing and stuff like that. But the feminine consciousness is about connection and our emotional intelligence, and it's about the imagination. One of the things I learned at the Jung Institute was that emotions give rise to images, right? And images are not symbols. I mean, images are not signs. A stop sign just says stop. An image is like a circle, and you sit there and you go, well, what is a circle? And you keep working it and you think of all the things that go with that. And symbols take you deep, deep, deep into our collective unconscious, where all of the wisdom resides. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about stories. We're going to work with images. We're going to do inner journeys. We're going to do a lot of things. Today, I was trying to figure out a way to do this, and it just wasn't coming because, like I said, this is the first time I've really taught this online. But today is the day we're going to talk about the sun consciousness, our consciousness, right? Our ego consciousness, you could call it. And we associate that with the masculine because that's how we've been trained, right? Whereas we say that the unconscious is feminine. It's irrational. Remember, I don't know, when we were young, they'd say, don't be so irrational, or don't be so, emotional. All of the feminine things were really picked on. We were also told, why are you in your imagination? That's for children. Why do you think like that? Leave it behind, leave it behind. So all of the deep feminine knowing has been rejected by our culture. So even though in some ways it would have been better to start this class with the imagination, we're going to wait because I wanted you to see and feel what that rational consciousness is like without any of the imagination thrown in, if you can. Okay. And once again, it's not coming out the way I wanted it, but we'll do it. So anyway, sit back, close your eyes. I'm going to tell you a story. Okay. Imagine that you're in a forest in a little cottage, and there's an old grandmother sitting by the fire. And she says, come in, come and let me tell you a story. It's a story about a princess, a very brave princess who went to look for her, the king of her desire, if you will. Okay. This is a German fairy tale called Allerleirauh. In my book, I call it Fur Skin because I didn't know about copyright or anything, but I changed it. Okay, so once upon a time, this is the story we're living in now. Let me just go back one more second. Fairy tales show us the archetypes of the collective unconscious. They show us the structure. An archetype is the basic structure that we have to learn. So this is about fathers and daughters, okay? There was once upon a time a king and a queen, and the queen was the most beautiful woman on earth. Besides the grace of her form and face, she had the most beautiful golden hair. And the king and queen's love was legendary. And even the birth of a daughter paled besides their obsessive love. Now, after a while, no one really knows what happened, but it came to pass that the queen grew ill. And as she lay dying, she called the king to her one last time. She looked him in the eye and demanded that he make her a promise. And as he loved her beyond measure, he agreed to whatever she wanted of him. She said, when you marry again after my death, you must find someone who is just as beautiful as I am. And she must have the same golden hair. You must promise me that you will do this. Now, the king protested that he could never marry again. He was devastated that his queen was dying. But the queen insisted. And so when the king finally gave his promise, she closed her eyes and died. Now, for a long time, the king wouldn't be comforted, and he had no thought of taking another bride. But his counselors said, the country needs a queen. And that's when he remembered his promise and said that he would only marry someone who was as beautiful as the late queen. But although there were many beautiful women who were fit to be queen, they didn't have the same golden hair. Now, the king's daughter had grown up quite alone, at first ignored because of her parents' obsessive love, and then because of her father's grief. This princess was just as beautiful as her dead mother, and she had the same golden hair. One day, the king finally noticed her and saw that in every respect, she was just like his late wife, and suddenly felt a violent love for her. Then he determined he would marry his own daughter. Although it went against all the laws of nature, the king would not be dissuaded. Well, the princess was shocked when she became aware of her father's desire, but hoped to turn him from it. And so she said to him, "Before I fulfill your wish, I must have 3 dresses, one as golden as the sun, one as silvery as the moon, and one as bright as the stars. Besides this, I wish for a mantle of fur made using a piece of skin from every animal in your kingdom." For she thought it would be quite impossible for her father to do this. The king, however, had the cleverest maidens in his kingdom weave the 3 dresses, and he had his huntsman catch one of every kind of animal in the whole of his kingdom and take from it a piece of its skin, and out of that was made a mantle of different kinds of fur. When all was ready, the king brought the dresses and the mantle to his daughter and set the wedding for the next day. When the king's daughter saw there was no hope of changing her father's mind, she resolved to run away. So in the night, she gathered her three of her treasures, a golden ring, a golden spinning wheel, and a golden reel. And she put the 3 dresses of the sun, the moon, and the stars in a nutshell. And then she put on her fairy mantle and blackened her face and hands with soot and secretly left the castle. She walked the whole night until she reached a great forest. And because she was tired, she hid in a hollow tree and fell asleep. Now the sun rose and she was still sleeping when it was full day. So she didn't hear the hunt that was led by a new king, a different king who owned the forest. When his dogs came to the tree, they sniffed and ran barking around it. The king told his huntsman to see what kind of wild beast was hidden there. The huntsman obeyed his order and went up to the tree. And when they saw what was there, they came back and told him that a wondrous beast was lying asleep in the hollow tree, one whose hide they had never seen before. So the king told them to catch it alive and fasten it to the carriage so that they could take it with him. When the huntsman laid hold of the princess, she awoke full of terror. They were amazed to hear her speak and asked who she was. She said, "I am a poor child deserted by both father and mother. Please have pity on me and take me with you." And so they called her Allerleirauh, which means many kinds of fur, and told her that she would be useful in the kitchen if she could sweep up the ashes. And then they put her in the carriage and took her home to the royal palace. And there they showed her a closet that under the stairs where no daylight entered, and told her she could live and sleep there. She was sent into the kitchen, and there she carried wood and water, swept the hearth, plucked the fowls, picked the vegetables, raked the ashes, and did all the dirty work. The princess lived there for a long time in great wretchedness. Then one day, a feast was held in the palace, and she asked the cook if she could go upstairs for a while and look on. She promised to stand outside the door where no one would see her. So the cook gave his permission, but said, "Get back here in a half an hour to sweep up the hearth." So she took her little oil lamp and went into her dark den and took off her fur coat and washed the soot off her face and hands so that her full beauty once more came to light. And she opened the nut and put on her dress that shone like the sun and went up to the festival. Everyone made way for her because although no one knew who she was, she definitely looked like a king's daughter. And the king of the castle came to meet her and danced with her and thought in his heart that he had never seen anyone so beautiful. When the dance was over, she curtsied, and when the king looked around again, she had vanished, and no one could say where she had gone. She ran into her little den, however, and quickly took off her dress, made her face and hands black again, and put on the mantle of fur. And when she got back to the kitchen, the cook said, leave off the cleaning till morning. Go make the soup that the king likes, because I want to go upstairs and take a look. So when the cook went away, the princess made bread soup for the king. And when it was ready, she fetched her golden ring from her treasures and put it in the bowl in which the soup was served. When the dancing was over, the king had his soup brought and ate it. And he liked it so much that it seemed to him that it had never tasted better. So he ordered the cook to come before him. Well, the cook was terrified when he heard the order, and he said to Allerleirauh, you've certainly let a hair fall in the soup, and if you have, you'll be beaten for it. Then he went before the king, and who asked him who made the soup. And when the cook said, well, I did, the king said, no, that couldn't be true, for it was much better than usual, and it was cooked differently. So the cook had to acknowledge that Allerleirauh had made it, and so the king sent for her. When she came, the king said, who are you? And Allerleirauh said, I'm just a poor girl who no longer has any father or mother. He asked, what use are you in my palace? And she answered, I'm good for nothing but to have boots thrown at my head. And then the king said, but where did you get the ring that was in the soup? And she said, I don't know anything about the ring. So when the king couldn't learn anything else, he sent her away. After a while, there was another festival. And once again, Allerleirauh begged the cook if she could go and look on. And he said, well, yeah, she could come do it and come back in a half an hour and cook the soup for the king that he liked so much. So once again, she ran into her dark den and washed herself quickly and took out of the nut the dress that was as silvery as the moon and put it on. Then she went up and was like a princess, and the king stepped forward to meet her and rejoiced to see her once more. And as the dance was just beginning, they danced it together. But when it ended, she again disappeared so quickly the king could not see where she went. She, however, sprang into her dark den and once again made herself into the hairy animal and went into the kitchen to prepare the bread soup. And when the cook went upstairs, she took the little golden spinning wheel and put it in the bowl so the soup covered it. And when it was taken to the king, who ate it and liked it, the king, and he had the cook brought, who once again was forced to confess that Allerleirauh had made it. And so when she came before the king again, he asked her all the questions he had asked her before. And she said she was only good to have boots thrown at her head and that she knew nothing about the golden spinning wheel. And so he had to let her go. When for the third time the king held a festival, Allerleirauh asked to go up to see the ball, and the cook said, Allerleirauh, you must be a witch, because you always put something in the soup that makes it so good that the king likes it better than the soup I cook. But he let her go up at the appointed time. And so she put on the dress that shone like the stars and entered the hall. Again, the king danced with the beautiful maiden and thought she had never looked so beautiful. And he had given orders that the dance should last a very long time. And while they were dancing, he slipped a golden ring on her finger without her noticing. And when the dance finally ended, he held onto her hands, but she tore herself loose and sprang away quickly through the crowd and vanished from his sight. She ran as fast as she could to her den beneath the stairs, but she had stayed more than the half an hour and she couldn't take off her starry dress, but only threw over it the mantle of fur. And in her haste, she didn't make herself quite so black, and one finger remained white. And then Allerleirauh ran into the kitchen and cooked the bread soup. And as the cook was away, she put her golden reel into it. And when the king found the reel at the bottom of the soup, he summoned her. And he saw the white finger and the ring that he had put on her finger during the dance. And then he grasped her by the hand and held her fast. And when she wanted to run away, her mantle of fur opened a little, and the star dress shone forth. And the king took the mantle and tore it off of her. And then her golden hair shone forth, and she stood there in full splendor and could no longer hide herself. And when she had washed the soot and ashes from her face, She was more beautiful than anyone who had ever been seen on earth. And the king asked her to marry him, and she agreed, for he was the king of her desires. Take a minute and just write down a few quick, intuitive hits about what you felt about that story. So as you're writing this down a little, because we're talking about the dress of the sun specifically, or our rational consciousness, I'm going to ask you questions and I want you to write things down, okay? I'm not going to interpret the fairy tale, which I do in the book, because I think it's always good to know how to understand symbolic language, but you can all ask me about it later. But first of all, we're just going to talk about the concrete, rational things we can from this. So here's this story, and this is what we were talking about, how the patriarchy takes all the good feelings we have and tries to eat them up, right? Tries to may own them, okay? Like The Secret, like the idea of what we can do with our imagination in the quantum fields. They wanted, he said, they went, good idea, let's do it and make everybody make money. But that's not what this story is about. This story is about us. It's about modern women, okay, who are fathers' daughters. The first time we heard this in Greek mythology was with Athena, the goddess of wisdom, whose father was Zeus. Now, Zeus was the head god, and he had heard that Metis, M-E-T-I-S, his wife, a goddess of wisdom, one of his many wives, he was going to give birth to someone who would overthrow him, who would be more powerful than he was. And so he swallowed his wife. Okay, just like Cronus swallowed all the children. Okay, the patriarchy loves to swallow things and eat them up. They love us so, right? And I always think of the Max and the Wild Things, and the Wild Things said, "We love you so," and Max said, "No." Okay, so having read that story so many times to all my kids, so here's the thing: Athena springs out of Zeus's head. She's masculine wisdom. He's transformed this earthy, powerful, feminine wisdom into something men can look at and like, because different goddesses like Medusa, she was a goddess of wisdom. She got turned into a monster that killed people. The patriarchy is so afraid of women, the fear of the feminine, okay? And they've tried to steal all our gifts. I read many years ago in a wonderful book called The Wise Wound. It was all about women and our menstruation and the power of blood. And basically they said, when men saw how powerful women are, they thought, well, it must have to do with the blood. So they started killing things to see if they could get the power, okay? So anyway, here we go. So the Father has made all of us fathers' daughters, right? We've gone to school. We figured out who we are, right? The dress of the sun. We know how to use our imagination, at least in terms of patriarchy, right? And then our spirituality, the dress of the stars. So we've gotten all of those things. The thing that we are all learning, when I first wrote this book in the 80s, nobody knew what was going on. And I didn't even know that much what was going on. Okay, it came out of me and I had to figure it out. But the mantle of fur is what we're all trying to learn right now, right? We're trying to figure out how do we get into that mantle of fur, because that's the thing that allows us to leave the Father's house. Going back to Athena, one of the plays that Sophocles or Euripides or one of those Greek guys wrote was called the Orestes. Orestes was the son of Agamemnon, who was one of the kings who went and killed and to Troy to war. And they didn't have any wind. And so Agamemnon killed his daughter, Epigenia, so they'd get wind for the sails. So Agamemnon's wife hated him, okay, because of it. And when he finally came home from the war, she killed him. And so her son Orestes killed her. Now, in ancient times, that was going against the mothers. And in this play, he's on trial, and Athena says, I'm for the masculine in all things. He just did what he needed to do. Okay, so I'm not going to read you the whole play or tell you, but basically there came a point in ancient Greece when wisdom no longer was in the province of women. Okay, Athena, as a goddess of wisdom, is a goddess of male strategy or the strategic mind. She's not an earthy goddess. She isn't the wisdom of the earth, right? And that's what Allerleirauh does. She goes to say, I need some wisdom from the earth to get away from my father who's trying to marry me. So this is where you start to write. I'll give you just a few minutes for each. So think about, first of all, what messages did you learn from your mother? Okay, this is the old story, and we need to know the old story before we can make a new story, right? So write down at least 3, because 3 is the magical number. You saw that. There's 3 dances, there's 3 dresses, there's 3 lots of things in here, 3 treasures. What was the message your mother gave you? Because of course, the queen totally betrayed her daughter. Okay. And when we look at fairy tales, as you're writing, I'll talk. When we look at fairy tales, the king represents the collective dominant. What that means is, what do we hold? What holds our society together? For a long time, it was Christianity. Okay. Now it's capitalism, right? Or anything that holds whatever, that most sacred sort of inner thing. And the queen represents the feeling. So when we lived in a very Christian society, it was all of us saying, yes, we believe in Jesus and God, and we'll go to church, and you have to be good Christians. That is gone. Okay. The young kids, they don't go to church. I don't go to church. My son, whose father is an Episcopal priest, once said to me, Mom, God and the goddess don't live in a church. Get over it, right? So the collective dominant begins to die when the queen dies. And here's this queen who, instead of saying, which is the feminine, which is supposed to be about knowing life and death are part of the cycle, instead of that, she condemns her own daughter to this awful, horrific marriage. Because she's a father's daughter. The mother's a father's daughter, right? Instead of saying, go and be free, do whatever you want, okay? She condemns her own daughter to being a servant to the father, to patriarchy. Ask any questions you want.
When you say messages from your mother, do you mean messages around as they pertain to men?
No,
Or just
anything about yourself as a girl. Like one of the things my mother said to me, you can't trust women.
oh, okay.
Okay. It's like, yeah, okay. And do you trust men instead? Who do you trust, right? So what are some of those messages that took you away from yourself, right? You can't trust women. What a patriarchal belief system that, statement that is, isn't it? Be ashamed of your body, Okay, so would anyone like to jump in with a few? Oh, yay, Kelly just wrote, my mother said men were not to be trusted. Yay, Kelly. Yay, mom. Okay, anyone want to share anything? Like throw a few things out, just everybody unmute
I'll
yourself.
share. She was all about the all natural. And then men are not to be trusted. And then she was big on boundaries too. So she helped me with that. Not an easy way. By the time I figured out what she really meant, I was grown. But yeah,
Yeah,
that was the things she gave me.
anything else from anyone? Good.
I was really taught to be invisible and to fear my father's anger and wrath by her telling me things that I had not witnessed, but evidently she had witnessed. So before I witnessed them, I was already apprehensive. And bottom line, she lied to me always. I mean, she lied day in and day out. I'll protect you, I'll do this, I'll do that. And up until the day she died, and she lived to be 93, I couldn't trust her. She totally lied to me all the time. And honestly, this metaphor, I'm not even taking it up, condemning her own daughter to a horrible marriage, meaning, the marriage being to the just condemning the daughter to the patriarchal bullshit. I mean, my mom she was the rock star of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say my dad wasn't, both of them were.
We'll get to dad next.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else want to share anything? Go ahead, Monica. You got to turn off your, yeah.
Yeah, all of that you all share, that also apply to me. The fear of men and untrust. So that's like the first one, but then after follow the repression of my feminine self-expression. And that's also connected to it, because like showing up that feminine energy, it was dangerous, because then we couldn't trust men, and it's, it's like calling into men and stuff like that. So it's a lot about this morality and Christian morality stuff that it's very much into my Latino culture.
Yeah. Yep. So like my mother was like, you have to be thin so that you can attract a man. That was her big thing. So I went, yeah, why? I'm going to get fat. How do you like that? Anyway, I was always a bit rebellious. She never knew what to do with me. It was like, oh, how'd I get her? Okay, anyone else?
I had sort of an interesting thing where I got that, sit down, shut up, don't rock the boat thing was very big. And who do you think you are anyway? So much so that became like a catchphrase in our household with my brothers, like as a joke. Like, who do you think you are anyway? And but at the same time, my mother gave me this message of this connection to nature and intuition and creativity, and this thing that we had that came down the female line, and they're all very intelligent, but the grounding of the message was don't trust yourself. Instead of fearing men, fear yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that came to other people as well.
Oh, yeah. Anyone else?
I have, yeah.
Hi, Janice.
These, I would say, are more like subtle messages that I just got from observing, shall we say. And one of them was, I say, accepting all people, speaking your mind, know your place, beauty's important, being taken care of by a husband, can't trust anyone, people wanting what you have, and seek alternative medicine. She was always telling us about her grandmother who was a healer, and she was always into, like I said, more, like I said, alternative, and she was very intuitive and about, seeking, in other words, those type things. But my favorite message was from my grandmother, who we used to spend summers with, especially in our teens, whenever boy crazy. And she used to tell us all men are dirty dogs. That was still the funniest,
Yeah.
but that was her message.
Okay, anyone else before we go on? Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to,
Oh, okay.
one of the messages was that I couldn't follow my talents as a creative person because I wouldn't make money. So I started college, even though I had gotten an honorable mention from a New York City art competition in elementary school, that was never given any attention. So I started college, but as a math major, because all real good artists are good mathematicians too, and visual artists. And so, but I lasted just one semester as that. And then I went off and traveled the hills of upstate New York with a dog around the campus, and came back and became a fine arts minor because they were paying for it. So I had to take education, but mostly in visual art. And so, that was squashed until just recently, maybe 5 years ago. And now I'm in a flute ensemble and writing a book and doing painting. And the other message that was really hard, being in astrology, lots of Scorpion energy, was that sex was bad. And that, she discovered I was still a virgin she discovered I was not a virgin at age 21, and she blew a gasket. It was, just a very strong message, get married as a virgin. So,
Yeah.
needless to say, I didn't get married till I was 50. I was having too much fun.
Girls are so different this time. Let me jump in. I have a friend whose daughter's daughter, okay, was she's like 3, and she did this video that her grandmother showed me, and she was saying, attention, attention. I guess her brother was just starting school. Come to the office, kings and queens. If you have a disobedient or dangerous daughter, bring her to the office. And it was so cute because we thought a dangerous and daughter of the dangerous daughters right here. Yeah. Okay, Carol, you were going to say something and then we'll go on.
Yeah, my mom was a martyr and she was living a life she didn't want to. Men were in charge. It was a man's world. Be nice, be quiet, disappear. She was miserable in her life. She would not have had all these children that she had if she had choices.
Yeah. Oh, my mother, I was a math major too. And my mother said, go into computers. This was back in the early 70s. And we always used to say, Mom, if you had gone in business, we would be bazillionaires right now, but instead you focused on us. So it was that, we're all brought up with, this is your job. Go out and get married and be a mother or whatever. Don't go into art. It won't make money, right?
I'm seeing my mother differently through this. This is very interesting.
Good.
Because, well, she was my father was in the army in World War II, so they didn't get married until after he got back. But everything was always the man comes first. But on the other hand, as she got older, and it always stayed that way. My father was everything. They were like they loved each other amazingly, but as they got older, I could see little things that they never said. And it's just all bringing up a lot of stuff. But she also put aside, and she was not encouraged to go to college by her parents. Of course, there was depression and all that stuff. I mean, there was so many factors. But I think she put aside her dreams and never really got a chance to see them come to fruition, because he got out of the army, they got married, they had 3 kids, they lived the suburban life, and he you know, she went to work later, and that was it when the women's movement was really rolling, and she got a little bit, you know, it was,
But I was mostly thinking in terms of what, when we were growing up, what was the message?
but yeah, but
That
the
formed
message
us.
always, all the way through, was the man comes first.
Man comes first.
Yeah, but later I could see how she was thinking about it.
Because there's, you know, our society changed, definitely.
Mm.
Okay, so now write a little bit about what are the messages your father gave you?
Kathy, what if you didn't know your father? Do I go with uncles and
Okay,
other
go with
men?
uncles, or you know what, the other side of it is you can go with society, because that's the other thing. If you don't know your father, that you can say uncles. What did the men in your family teach you? You know, and then just do a couple, and then what are the messages from society that you grew up with? We grew up in the 50s, the 60s, maybe a bit of the 70s, you know, so we grew up before a lot of this cultural revolution that we have.
Yeah. He was the breadwinner. Yeah.
So at least archetypally, the mother, and I know that this is changing, but our unconscious is very ancient. So at least the mother archetype is about saying to the child, you deserve to be alive. You're wonderful just the way you are.
Hmm.
So the negative mother complex, that's the positive mother complex. The negative mother complex is you don't deserve to be alive. You're awful. I'm a witch. And that's the witch in fairy tales. And it's so interesting that in so many fairy tales in Western Europe that we grew up with, it was all about the witch.
Mm-hmm.
Because in patriarchy, any kind of power was turned into a negative, right? And women were taught to go against themselves and against their own daughters. That's why I love the new movies about Maleficent so much, because she was the rejected feminine, right? In the fairy tales about Sleeping Beauty, the first one was, the original one was about a king. When he had his daughter, he only had 12 golden dishes, and 12 is the masculine number. And the 13th fairy was rejected. And that's the dark, mysterious feminine that's powerful and magical. And in those movies, the lady who wrote them redeemed her in many ways, right? And so I remember my daughter back in New York City in the early 70s, when we didn't have Disney on call, you know, they took some of the things out of the vault, and at Lincoln Center, they showed some Disney movies. And she came back and she ran around the seminary with all these little goody kids going, I am Maleficent and I am going to get you. And all the kids ran away from her. And she was a little blondie, and she would say, I'm dyeing my hair black when I get older. You know, so kids know how to deal with this, and we cut them off. You know, that was way before she got any sort of cultural messages about that's a bad thing to do. And I have to admit, being at seminary, everybody was kind of goody, and I was glad she wasn't. But anyway, that's my rebellious side. Okay, and then just quickly write one or two cultural things that you learn from church or education or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, when I was in school, I was really good in math and science in high school. And my mother was always fixing me and my sister up. And she got me contact lenses, and I couldn't see very well in physics. And the physics teacher accused me of being, oh, my brain just, of being not shallow, but like, oh, you just did it because you want to look good. That's the only reason you got contact lenses, and that's made you less of a student because now you can't see as well in the microphone. It was just a stupid thing, but it was like, oh, you shouldn't be beautiful, or you shouldn't care about it if you're smart. That shouldn't be a thing. And kind of a message I got was, it's more important to be smart than to be kind, or it's more important to be smart than beautiful, unless you just wanted to be one of those beautiful girls who sucked up a husband, right? So we had a lot of these negative messages constantly. I was the teacher's pet until then, and then he just went, nope. Oh, vain. He told me I was vain. That's right. It was like, vain? Oh, okay. And I said, I can't dance and not see. So this helps me, because I was a dancer. I said, this helps me to see. So we get these messages constantly, and those make up our old story. So before we go on, I want you to write what we, in my young friends in Vegas, called a Chinese cookie fortune cookie, one line or two. What was the story that you were told when you were little, before you grew up? Before you grew up, what was the story you were told about who you could be? You can do anything. Do. And a lot of it was, you have to have money, all of us got that, it's important, whatever. Okay. And this week, really think about this, because sometimes as I'm talking, I forget to go back to things. This week, after this week, until next week, you're going to work on what's the old story and then what's the new story. So what we're going to do is, now I want everybody to stand up and stretch. Okay. Now we're going to get into our mantle of fur. Okay. So this piece is called Totem. It's by Gabriel Roth, who did the 5 Elements dance. And so when we're in our mantle of fur, what happens is that we connect to our totem animals. We connect to our instincts. So let's everybody stand up and start dancing a little. Can you hear it? Is everybody hearing the music?
It's a little soft.
Okay, let's turn it louder. Better? And if any of you know Qigong, you can just start by shaking. Okay. I wish I had done that a little bit more smoothly, so I apologize. But now we're in our bodies. Okay. And that's why in the fairy tale, the princess dances with the king. Okay. Because it's through dance, it's through moving energy through our bodies that we connect to them. So we're going to go on a tiny little journey right now, trying to squish a lot into a little bit of time. So now that the energy is there, I don't know if you know the Qigong thing where you just shake, and it's a really good exercise and you shake out all the knots, but you can be doing that. But so I want you to close your eyes and relax. Does anyone need a break? Nope. Okay. So close your eyes and relax. And now come with me on a journey. I want you to imagine that you have on a mantle that's just covered with fur. Or that your hair has grown out. The other night I had a dream image of this girl or woman who had let all the hair on her legs grow and all over her body. So we're going to be in our hairy mantle. And I want you to imagine that you're in a forest and you come upon a beautiful big tree and there's a little hollow in there. And I want you to sort of snuggle in as if the tree is embracing you. And I want you to sit there and I want you to think about one little issue. Don't make it world peace or anything like that. One issue in your life that you want a little bit more information about. And then I want you to sort of imagine that you're sending out a call and ask if a spirit animal can come to you. And I know all of us have done spirit animals and we have certain ones that we work with, but I want to see if there's a specific one that comes to you for this issue, this one basic issue that you'd like some information about. I don't know if this will sound or not. Okay. Slowly come back. I thought of that at the last minute about getting a drum. Sometimes that helps. Okay. Did all of you get an animal that came to you? How many people were surprised at who came? Okay. So you wrote it down, right? Take a minute, write it down. Write down the question that you were asking about.
Oh, oh, oh.
Okay, so the mantle of fur is all about all of our instincts, right? To live in our instincts. That's the worst and hardest thing a father's daughter can do, because we've been trained to be in our head with all that glorious golden hair instead of in our instinctual body, right? So living in that mantle of fur means that we have to get down to earth. We have to embody all of those types of consciousness. So the types of consciousness I'm talking about is sun consciousness, is about how we deal with the world, right? In patriarchy, it's I have to get a job, I have to have a family, I have to, whatever it is. I have to look right, eat right, smell right, any of the things that come up for how we think of ourselves and how we name ourselves. Okay, the dress of the sun is all about naming ourselves. Okay, as a father's daughter, the first thing we say to people is, so what do you do? Right? We don't go, who are you? We mostly say, so what do you do? Right? I'm a therapist, I'm a mother. You know, we name ourselves by the things we do. Because let's go back. The feminine is about being, our beingness. The masculine is about our doingness, right? How we do things. I'm a bit irreverent. I go, men have a penis and it sticks out. Women have a vagina, it's inside, okay? So, you know, it's very simplistic, but it really says, you know, a lot about what we're talking about. So what we're trying to do is do away with the patriarchal doing and rediscover the fairy tales really about how do we stop doing what the patriarchy wants us to do, and how do we as women want to do things, right? What is our doingness? And so when Allerleirauh wears her mantle of fur and you know, and cleans the vegetables and cleans out the ashes and carries wood and water, she's going through daily life trying to listen to her instincts, right? Rather than, oh, I better hurry and do this. Because one of the things in our culture right now is we have so much to do. You have to hurry, hurry, hurry to fit everything in, right? So if we're going to find our own way to do things, then we're going to have to go against it. I know some of you have been in my classes and you've heard this, but this is the story I tell. I've never been a very good patriarchal girl. I guess I just came in like that. I told my parents when I was in 6th grade, because I got 110 on the test on the math. I did better than 100. And I was better than all the boys. And I went home, I went, I'm going to be a Roman Catholic priest, the first woman priest. And then my father laughed and I went, I'm going to be the first woman pope. And then I found out there already was one. So I always was sort of against the grain. I'm a bit rebellious. But when I was raising my 4 kids as a single mom, at a certain point, I thought I should go and work full time. I got to get out of here. I was only working part-time. And I had 3 sons that were just 2.5 years apart. They were killing each other when my ex-husband first left. Not literally, but, you know, they'd get into a lot more fights because he wasn't around to yell at them. And so I had a dream that I was standing in a new age store here in town, the Grateful Heart. The people who live here know it. But nobody was waiting on me. And I had a calendar in my hand. And I knew, I said, I waited an hour and I thought, screw this. And I walked out, with the calendar, but I walked into a room and there was a woman artist there with an easel and everything. And she said, Kathy, put the calendar back. And I went, no. And I explained why I had to have it. And she called all these kids to come in, and all these little kids came and circled around me and danced around me and said, Kathy, put the calendar back. And so I did. I didn't go and get a full-time job. I sort of told my kids, we're going to be poor, but we'll deal with it. And that's how we did it. And of course, everyone was appalled that I wasn't working full-time and leaving my children, right? But I tricked all of them, right? They ended up growing up and being good guys, okay? Especially because they were boys. Okay. And I needed to make sure that I raised good boys. Pardon me? So it's about stepping away from what I should do and doing what needs to be done. Right. So take a minute. I'm not going to do the drums just because we'll only take a minute, because I want you to redo this during the week, but I want you to close your eyes, go back in, and I want you to ask your spirit animal, your totem animal that came to you, what is this issue really about? I want you to name it. Often we think we know what things are about, but there always is something more. So on a soul level, what does your soul really want from you in this situation? Name it. Okay. Is everyone sort of done? Does anyone need a little more time? No. Okay. So is it just, you can like shake your head or put your finger up? Is it different from what you, when you named it, is it a little different from what you were asked before you asked for the totem animal? I'm seeing some heads shaking. Okay. Okay, now we're going to use the dress of the moon. So now I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're putting on your moon dress, which is about the imagination. See, the dress of the sun and that ring, it was about, you had to unite yourself with your soul's purpose. Now the imagination is about spinning, right? What are we going to spin? What kind of web do we want to weave? What kind of cloth do we want to make? So I want you and your totem animal to sit there and have a conversation about the best way to go about it. But you don't have to talk about it. You have let yourself imagine it. And if you want, you can imagine your animal leading you someplace into a forest, if you will. We'll do more about this next week when we talk about the imagination, but I want to show you the difference between patriarchal imagination and feminine imagination. So see what you can do. Okay. And once again, this is just the beginning of the plan, if you will. Okay, finish up with that, if you will. Okay. Okay, everybody done? Okay. So now imagine taking off your dress and putting on the star dress. What is the value that you're trying to live? Okay, like part of, looking at the stars are our ancestors, but they're also about what we value. So what is the issue at hand? How are you going to deal with it? And what is the value? Is it peace? Is it beauty? Is it harmony? Is it community? What is the value or the star that is calling you to this way, a different way to do this? Like back when I did it, it was freedom. Okay, it was like, nope, I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not going to go get a job I hate. I'm free. I just got permission from my unconscious not to do what I didn't want to do anyway. Okay, can you all see the chart that I have up? No? Let's try it again. Okay. Okay, before I do, okay, is anyone seeing this?
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Yep.
The thing came on. Okay. So the reason we're doing this is to find a new way to be, right? I mean, a new way to do things, our own unique, feminine, personal way to do things. The reason I chose today to give the class was because of the astrology of it, in a way, okay? So this is the astrology chart of when we began. So today, and Kelly, please come on too, if you want. So this is what I wanted to talk about. These two things up here, if you can see it, this is Venus and this red one is Mars, okay? So Venus and Mars have been traveling through the sky together for the last week or so, okay? Very close to each other. Venus represents our values. To me, she represents our soul. We're going to talk about that later and use that later on in other classes. But it's how we embody ourselves. I was just taking a class with someone about the Venus cycle. And she kept saying, the moon is only our unconscious patterns. And Venus, the solar feminine, she's the one, right? And it was beautiful, but I don't agree with her. The moon is our motivation. Okay, the moon is what we know already. It's what builds our unconscious habits. It's what nurtures us. Okay, so I looked up everybody's moon, and I will tell you, except I need 2 or 3 other ladies before we end, so I can, if you don't know where your moon is, because next week we're going to work on that a little. But Venus, to me, is how we incarnate that. If the moon is I would say our third eye, it's our projector, it's how we see the world and how we connect to the creative imagination, because we all connect differently, right? So the moon is one way we can describe that. But Venus is how we embody that image, okay? Our personal embodiment of it. So it isn't that, oh, the moon is just the old stuff and Venus is the new stuff. The moon gives shape to how we manifest our soul and how we manifest our individuality. So the reason I bring this up is because today Venus and Mars come together, okay? They're starting a new cycle. They came together in Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of our collective societies, the structure we have. this is just a little astrology, ladies, and you probably know some of it. And it's been going through Capricorn since 2008. And what Pluto does, it says, let's bring up what isn't working so we can get rid of it, because it's the planet of evolution. It's also the planet of power. But it says to evolve certain energies, Pluto needs to go through that sign to say what isn't working. Let's all look at it. So Pluto's been going through the sign of our collective institutions since 2008, and we all see what a mess they are. I mean, we began in 2008 with our financial system sucks, okay? And now we've been learning the secrets that are behind how our government operates, how everything operates, and how it doesn't operate for anybody's purpose but rich people's, basically, around the world. There's still a power, a group of people who dominate in the world. So anyway, quickly, just on the 20th of February, or the 22nd, I'm not quite sure which one, America had its first Pluto return. Pluto is about power. When America's 4th of July chart was drawn up, the planet Pluto was in Capricorn at about 27 degrees. And it takes about 248 years or so to go around the zodiac. So America is a young country. This is our first Pluto return. Usually that means the end of an empire, if you will. It means a rebirth of whatever our belief systems are. And it's interesting to me that when we had our Pluto return, Mr. Putin went into the Ukraine, and what we saw was a resurfacing of that desire for freedom. Democracy, we still have to work on, but it was as if the revolution we had in 1776, now we see how it's spread throughout the world. Like, our country isn't doing all that great, I don't think, in terms of our democracy, but all the things that aren't working are up for us to heal, and the same in the world. So anyway, long story short, Venus and Mars just went over Pluto. So Pluto says, let's evolve what we believe. Venus has been retrograde in Capricorn since December 19th. And so Venus went back past Pluto. It was with Pluto on Christmas Day. And then it went forward and it hit it again. And now it's going forward. So and Mars went there too. So we have this ability right now to shape the energies, okay? Mars and Venus represent archetypes. Archetypes are like the laws, the cosmic laws of life. But they're not just one thing. They're just like a structure. They're like a blueprint. And every generation and every person fills that blueprint in a personal way, or a generation fills it in, right? So when an archetype is old, the queen dies, right? When something happens and it dissolves, it's no good, and it becomes a stereotype. So we have this structure. I always use this. The archetype of the storyteller and the bard is the wisdom keeper of the culture. It's not wisdom, that immediate sense, but the stories and the wisdom that we pass on. But the bards now have become entertainers, right? So now it's a stereotype. Now it's dead. It's just dead in the water. Back in the 60s, I would say we had a lot of bards, the Beatles being the big ones. But a lot of the musicians really spoke to what was going on and inspired us, right? So, but now some musicians do, but a lot don't, or at least for a long time, they didn't. So now we're back to this place where our Venus can be filled out, our Mars can be filled out with whatever we want, because they've gone through that Pluto transformation. Now, the interesting thing, is Venus and Mars are at 0 degrees, 2 minutes of Aquarius. So Venus and Mars are both saying, we need to listen to what collective consciousness wants. Where are we going? The age of Aquarius is coming. How can we be free? How can we be equal? We're fighting, the old wants to say, these people are evil and these people are good. Well, guess what? All people are good. People do stupid and evil things, but we can't say a whole segment of the world is bad. We can't say Muslims are bad. We can't say the Irish are bad. We can't say the Black people are bad or Indian people are bad. We can't say women are bad. Everybody is equal in Aquarius, right? And so if Venus is saying we're all in this together, let's look to the future with Mars there, and she goes, go do it, Mars. And so there's hope for all of us that something is going to turn around. And the young people especially are going to say, we don't want this ridiculous stuff going on anymore. We don't want to say those people are bad or gay people are bad or transgender people are bad, because we don't think that. Just because you old people think it doesn't mean we think it, right? So we have that. Then we also have Jupiter and the sun just came together last night in Pisces. And so Pisces is the sign of the collective unconscious, whereas as Aquarius is the sign of our collective consciousness, where we as a people, as a world, our minds are going, where do we see the future, right? So like we're getting out of that old Cartesian belief of cause and effect, and we're going more into that quantum thing of I can make things happen just by thinking it, right? A whole different way to see the world, a whole different paradigm. So Pisces is the sign of the collective unconscious, all of the things that we have rejected, like peace, like women, like children, like old people, okay? Like equality, all of the things our culture has repressed, and now it's coming back, and spirituality. The collective unconscious is also what I would call the world soul. It has the memories of everybody that's ever lived, and that's why we can, and that's where the creative imagination comes in. Well, anyway, here's Jupiter right next to the sun, but also the sun is between both Jupiter and Neptune. Jupiter was the old ruler of Pisces, and Neptune, when they discovered it, became the new ruler. So Neptune is about spirituality and imagination, and also illusions and delusions. A lot of the trouble we have with what's fake news and why people are so into conspiracy theories and don't know what to believe is because that's the flip side of Neptune and Pisces. We don't know what to believe, right? Jupiter coming in for this year is kind of, he's more like solid. I always think of Jupiter as like religion more than spirituality. But in Pisces, he's saying, let's structure who we are and what we believe. Let's give it a little structure. And do we really want to be in delusion? Do we really want to believe lies? Or are we going to choose to listen to our hearts and find our truth there? So we have that going on. And okay, so like I said, I'm not trying to do this whole thing, but the interesting thing is, so like I said, if the moon is our motivation for this class, our motivation 29 degrees plus Aries, our motivation for this class is to be free, to explore, to be in Aries, okay? To be brave, to go where no one has gone before with Captain Picard and the crew, okay? To go to sort of be the pioneer. We have to stand at the frontier and look into the unknown and say, I'm going to go there. That's our motivation, okay? And what we're going to incarnate is a new freedom, a new vision of what it means to be a woman. And we're going to do it based on a deep spiritual belief that we can access the creative imagination and create out of that. The other thing that's going on is that we have the nodes, the lunar nodes. That's where eclipses occur. And the north nodes in Taurus. What's our values? What do we believe? What do we want to build? And the south nodes in Scorpio. What do we need to let go of? We need to let go of trauma. We need to let go of fear. Okay. We need to let go of the belief that we can't trust anyone. But I always say to people, the only way you can be betrayed is if you betray yourself. If you don't trust yourself, then you can't trust other people. A friend of mine, Carolyn Casey, who's an amazing and yet strange astrologer, she said she goes to all these conferences and people always tell her about their trauma. And she said, one day I said, let's stop calling it trauma. Let's call it our dangerous, beautiful assignment. Because on a soul level, if we chose to incarnate in this lifetime, then all the issues we've had to face have been there to make us conscious. They've been our dangerous, beautiful assignment. Okay? Like I always thought, I want to go out and be in the world, and I want to have amazing adventures. And I got married and pregnant at 20. Okay. And ended up with 4 kids. I didn't do that. It was like, oh God, this life sucks, but it didn't. That's how I was supposed to learn. And it was in my astrology chart. I had to be a mother. I was a mother to my siblings. Okay. And I thought, I don't want to be a mother. So what was the universe said? She keeps saying mother. Let's make her a mother. And they did. Okay. So a lot of it is we have to get over feeling as if we're so tender that we can't deal with life. We're not in the war. We're not being bombed. We're not, for the most part, we don't have hunger. We do have hunger in our country. But for the most part, as one of my sons, my philosopher king son says to me, Mom, you without hardly any money compared to most people are in the top 0.001% of people in the world of wealth. Okay. We have been given a grace to live here in many ways. So to me, that's our job then, is to get over that fragile ego that says, I can't deal with my life, and get a backbone. Okay. And to say, this is just what I've been given. This is my initiation into consciousness. This is how I've chosen to come in and learn my lessons so I can be free. And the interesting thing is that when you look at these north and south nodes at 25 or 24 of Scorpio and Taurus, exactly squaring it is Mercury in Aquarius. And when something exactly squares those nodes, we say, we have to look at this. And so Mercury in Aquarius says we need to be not just smart, but we need to think out of the box. We need to go beyond rational thinking, which to me says, start to think with your heart. Start to think with your gut, and then combine the heart, the gut, and the brain, and come up with amazing, amazing solutions to the issue that you have in front of you. We don't have to also solve world hunger, but look at the hunger in your neighborhood, or look at the hunger of the people that you know. What can you do? Come up with inventive ways to do it. Hey, Kelly, unhook yourself. What do you think?
Hello. I was thinking about Venus and Mars meeting in Capricorn first as a renegotiation of roles and responsibilities so that we could initiate here today and be, conscious equal partnership, sovereign, independent, free. The freedom piece is like, now we're going to work toward that, because we renegotiated what was important and the fundamentals and all that. Also, when you talked about the T-square with the nodes and Mercury, I always say bring in that fourth leg consciously of Leo, which is the love and the passion and the caring and being heart-centered. So that's what we need to balance out that trinity. And again, with Mercury being the other side of it, there's our consciousness and our minds and our thinking and how we express. But to balance it all out and to make it strong, we got to bring in that heart.
Definitely.
So that's all I got.
Okay. Kelly's a great astrologer. So anyway, so there's the reason why we're starting today. We're going to find our own masculine. Okay. We've renegotiated, as Kelly said, in that Capricorn place. We've been reborn and saying the feminine is the foundation. Okay. The feminine consciousness and women, we're the foundation of the world. The masculine is the thing that comes and goes. Okay. Even though we have the anonymous, Jesus died and resurrected. Osiris died and resurrected. The masculine principle is what changes. The feminine principle is the same. It's about life and death. It's about the cycle of, it's about the cosmic laws of life that create life here on earth and us and life anyplace else. It's the masculine. It's the doing that can and does change, right? Am I wrong? You know, I think that's why men get so upset with women, because we're solid, you know, and we're here and they are the ones who have to change and they don't like that. You know? So, any questions? We're coming up on 2 hours and I want to talk to you a little bit about, so I wanted sort of to give today a feeling of, what patriarchy is like in a way, or how we all grew up. So yeah, I told you stories, but we didn't really go like deeply into how to work with the imagination. We're doing that next week. Okay. So if this was the sun dress, then next week's the moon dress. Okay. The week after that, I will be in Maui, but I'm going to be with my 2 priestesses. And so we're going to talk about the earth, and I'll let you know what you have to have and bring to that. And then we're going to do a little spring equinox ritual, because it's spring equinox on the 20th. Okay. And then we will skip a week because I don't know where I'll be. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about the star dress. And we're going to get in touch with our archetypal energies, the priestess, the goddess, the priestesses that we are. And then in the last class, we're going to talk about Venus and soul and psyche. And hopefully by then you'll know how to connect to nature. You'll know how to connect to the world. You know how to connect to your inner guides so that you make the right choices rather than the acceptable choices. Okay. So let me find it. So one of the things I would like you all to do is I would like you to look up online, which is really easy. I'm going to tell you what your moon sign is. And I want you to look up your moon sign. And I want you to think about if it describes you and your motivations. Okay. Because that will be for next week. So Susan, you have a Gemini moon. Okay. We have a lot of Gemini moons. Monica, you have a Capricorn moon. Pam, you have a Gemini moon. Carol, you have a Sagittarius moon. Alteri, you have a Scorpio moon. Now, Kelly, you must know your own moon, but I don't know it. And I don't have Linda's.
Virgo.
Okay. Oh, Virgo moon. Okay.
Me too.
Who? Linda?
Yep.
Okay. And so Janice, you're the only one that I don't have your moon for, but I will look it up.
Okay, do you have my date of birth or?
No, I don't. So after everybody gets off, or
I can just give it to you if you want.
okay, tell me what it is.
4:15:51, and time was 7 p.m.
7 p.m. and where?
Waltham, Mass.
Okay. So I will look it up and I will email it to you.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Mhm.
so a little bit more of that sundress, you're going to do research. Okay. But you're going to research in terms of play around with it. Okay. I have a Cancer moon. Okay. We have a lot of Gemini moons. So what is the motivation? I say motivation because the moon is how we get nurtured. Right. So in a way, it's our motivation. And it's also when you're motivated by something, that's how you see the world. Right. Even though in astrology, we say it's the ascendant that we see the world, but the moon in some ways is what motivates us. Right. So we will come back and we'll all discuss that next week. Okay. And next week is going to be fun. We're going to go on a lot of journeys. So for those of you who haven't done shamanic journeying, I will try to explain it and we'll do it. And hopefully we'll have the drumming. I think I can get a drumming thing that will play online. Did you hear the music by any chance? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. See, when I give the class in person, we have a whole section where we dance first and get back in our bodies. And so the thing you could all do would be before class, move around a little. Next week, we'll move around in the very beginning, but, and we'll talk about the imagination and why it's so important. And then we will go into the imagination some more and maybe find some other totem animals that you can work with. Okay. But this week, go ahead. Yep, Sue.
Yeah, it's interesting for me, the problem that I came up with inside of the tree was how to get motivated again. Like what my motivation has disappeared. What the hell, how am I going to get that back and so forth? And no animal showed up. The whole friggin' forest full of animals showed up. It was like every animal in the world showed up. I already know that I came to do work with community. So I that made sense to me that showed up.
Well, that was it. The whole community came.
And the whole community showed up.
But that's how symbols work,
Yeah.
It's like, here's the problem. And so the community all came.
And the thing that I love though is what you were saying in terms of, I get the reason I think I'm not motivated, meaning I just can't seem to move past now toward what's in front of me, is that just what you're talking about we're here to do right now is to figure out the new way of being motivated or actually doing it, the actual, you said the heart, the gut, and the brain, as opposed to how we've done it in the past, which would be more patriarchal. But anyway.
Which is basically, don't listen to your heart, kill it, right? That's how I always say. Your heart goes, I want that. And your brain goes, you can't have it, kill it.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you. This is really exciting.
I hope it's good. I hope it's good. Like I said, you're my first online class. So we're pioneering. Any feedback, anything you'd like more from me, let me know. Okay. And if today was just a little dispersed, I apologize. I had planned a few things and then it didn't come up. But so pay attention to your dreams. Okay. Because if we're doing the moon dress next week, your dreams might come in important. So if you have one tonight, even if it's little, okay, write it down. Okay. Thank you, Monica. And what I'm gonna do is I will download this, I will put it on YouTube and I will make it private and then I will send you the link. So if you wanna hear it again, but it will only be open to us, okay? Any questions before we go? Okay, Alteri left already, so I don't know where she went. Maybe she had to go, it was late. So dreams, okay, write them down. And if you think there's a dream that relates to what we talked about, send it to me, this week, and I'll work on it, and then we'll discuss it a little next week too. Okay? Okay. I'll
Thank
see
you, Kathy.
this week.
You.
And take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, my.